Hi everyone, my name is Callie and welcome to my place and my plot. In this video we're going to work on the spare bedroom in my place. It's kind of become a dumping ground. I do use it every day, but I certainly don't use it well. And I was inspired by both a friend and of course Pinterest to do something different with this room, especially as we are all spending more time at home. It's the middle of winter and it's going to keep me busy. So I'm putting some effort into redecorating this room. In this video, I'm going to focus on how to repair a wall. So I had some shelves I needed to take down. The shelves were part of a rail system, and there were 3 long stripes on this wall that were uneven to the wall that I just needed to patch up in a way that would hide them very well under a new coat of paint. And so all the trials and tribulations of getting that task done are what are part of this video. This will probably be one in a series of 3 or 4 for redecorating this room and getting it to its final masterpiece. I hope you enjoy. Hello! Today, we are starting inside because there is something I want to show you, and I'm slowly spinning around in this room. I'm probably making you sick, just to show you what we're dealing with. This is my spare bedroom, and in my spare bedroom, it currently serves 2 functions. It is where I get dressed in the morning and do my makeup, and it is where I store craft stuff. It is not super useful. I never actually do crafts in here, which was kind of the idea when I started. It ain't happening. So I want to take you in a before of this because I got new ideas for this room. So here's the door as you come in. And right here I have a chair, which I find super useful. This is where I sit and get dressed in the morning. I have a place to set up some clothes. Hang on, I'm going to move it over here now. Over here you see a collection of shelves. These shelves store craft stuff and some clothing. Weird mix, and it's out, and I'm not sure I really like that anymore. Oh, and then you see down here, yeah, that's not pretty. This room has become a bit of a dump room, you know, where you dump everything. So that needs to be taken care of. And then I'm going to spin us around here. Over here is my vanity area. And now some people might find this kind of weird, but I have used a coat rack to hang up clothes I've worn once to keep them kind of fresh so I can wear them another day. There's my vanity area. I have a mirror there. You can't tell, but that mirror runs all the way down to the floor. And it was from my old house, and it's just this beautiful long mirror. Might find a use for that in the new room too. And then as we spin around, one of the things you can see here are my windows. They are high windows. I don't even know how you want to say that, but they are windows that don't go down to the normal length they should. Then I have, look, more crafty storage. Oh, and that is my grandmother's old rocking chair. She used to rock my dad in that. Thought that would be fun to see. So there's a lot of nostalgic things in this room. And in this corner, we have my grandmother's sewing basket. And I bought this quite a few years ago when I had cats that ate plants. And I use it as a greenhouse. It is made from a bunch of old windows. So it's beautiful. And then this is another grandma thing. That is my grandmother's old Hoosier cabinet. It's awesome. And it currently stores craft stuff, which is another thing. So one of the things I need to do, I think, is my plan is going to be to kind of empty the room. It's going to get a paint job because this blue is really intense. I'm going to go for something a little bit mellower. And then I'm going to convert this into a home gym space for my exercise equipment, which I never use because it's never available and out to use. And I'm going to keep it as my dressing area. So we shall see how this all goes. So we've made some progress today. I have been doing a little rearranging in the room to kind of get things set up. First thing I did is right here over my shoulder. I have been removing the white shelves that were here. I also removed the cedar chest that was here. The other thing that has disappeared is right here. This used to have the Hoosier cabinet, my grandmother's Hoosier cabinet, and you can see there are all of the shelves. So my next step is I need to score alongside these rails right here along these edges because I think this has been painted in at least twice because I want to pull these off the wall. And I think there's actually screws on here too that I'm going to have to take off. Probably going to have to take off paint to find those as well. So that is my next step, and then there will probably be some patching and repair to do on this wall, but we are very close to that step. And then I can move my vanity over here, and then I can move the treadmill to that corner, and I'll have to move the bookcase over here for now. Yeah, things are starting to move. For this one, I used an X-Acto knife. I had my paint tool, your basic flathead screwdriver, and a hammer, though it turned out I didn't really need that. One of the last things you saw me do was use my paint tool to just kind of take off the high points on this place because the paint had curved up on where the brackets were. And so there was a definite ridge, and this will allow me a little bit of an easier time to patch this. But there it is. This wall is ready to rock and roll. Yes! Another task done to remodeling the spare bedroom. So I decided to go ahead and throw some of the patch on, because why not get started while you can? I'm not being super neat about this, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to need a second coat. I'm just using some all-purpose sheetrock joint compound. The reason I'm using this is I'll be able to wipe it with a damp cloth off rather than sanding it, which every time I try sanding a patch, I wind up with like scratch marks and stuff on the original texture. So I'm not going to do that. Like I said, remember that this is actually, I mean, you can even tell, this is probably primer over some other paint. Then they put up those shelves, and there's at least 2 layers of paint on top of that. So there's definitely a divot where these are. So I'm just trying to fill it, going across initially, and then coming down, get it off with some of this other stuff, making sure I get those holes at the same time. So by going across, what I'm hoping to do is squish it in a little bit, just to make sure it gets some decent adhesion. Whoop. Get some of this. See, I'm being really messy. Really, really messy. It's a little hard to tell where it is. Probably very hard from where you are. But there is a slight color difference between the joint compound and the color that's back there on the wall. So what's convenient about this, you just saw me do it, is my spatula. Here, not a spatula. Well, whatever this thing is. It's a little bit wider than this gap. So when I run it down along the slide, I run it straight down the center like this. I'm actually smoothing it so it matches. Oh, see, and now I did a smear. So it brings it up to the same level as the painted wall. So, but like I said, I'm pretty sure it's a reasonably thick thing. I'm probably going to do a second coat of this. Now in the end, the hope is to have the vanity over here, which means there will be a mirror up here. But these are pretty significant and obvious patches. I may do a little bit of texturing on the next layer to see if I can get something a little bit more like this, just so it doesn't look so much like stripes down the middle. It'll kind of depend. The texture of the paint roller will work. And one of the things I'd heard is that you can run a slightly damp paint roller over top of this wet stuff to just give it that little hint of texture. I'm going to kind of see how it all goes, and I might do that. I don't typically do that for, you know, a nail hole patch, or I recently patched up drapery rod holes and that kind of thing, and they were a little bit bigger. They were like this big, and it wasn't that noticeable at all, so I'm not that worried about it. But I don't want 3 obvious gaps, like because of the evenness and the rest of it, they will be noticeable behind. So I might do a little bit of texturing on this when I put on the second coat. We shall see how it goes. So I wanted to give you a quick update. Last night I did come by and put on a second coat. So first, you can see some of the streaks. I wiped it with a wet cloth, which helped take off this extra, but I noticed they weren't really full, the ridges. So they're a little bit smoother now. And again, we've talked about the texture. So here is my plan. You're gonna laugh. My plan is to give these a wipe. So this is just a damp cloth. To give these a wipe to kind of smooth it out, get back to some of the original texture around it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay on another layer of the joint compound. And you know, look, this is pretty textured. And I'm thinking I might just try like dabbing it. Like so, just to bring up a little texture as the final coat. All right, let's see if we can do this. So you can already see I've wiped down a chunk of this to kind of smooth it out to the wall. It's been filled twice, so it's pretty flush. The idea here is I want to try and add back some texture. So here I go. I'll start at the top. I'm just putting sort of a coat of new joint compound on. I'm not pressing super hard. So my cloth is down. Okay, it's definitely not the same texture as the wall. But the idea here is just maybe rough it up a little bit. Remember, the paint is going to, fill in a lot of these. So it's just my hope that I can fake a little bit of roughness. I will admit it does not look the same at all. Okay, so just for fun, I'm going to put some of the putty, some of the joint compound rather, right on my towel. Let's see what that does. Ooh, ooh. Get a little bit more up and down texture with this. I mean, kind of too much, but I think this is going to be the technique. Time to fast forward this into speedy mode. So while we're busy making the larger repairs over on the other wall, I'm also patching any holes in the walls around this bedroom to get it ready for painting. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use joint compound because, like I said, the spackle, you have to kind of sand it afterwards, and that never seems to work well for me. So I have 2 holes here from nails. Oh, and I see there's one here ready too. So I just, in case you've never patched holes in your walls, it's very simple. Get something with a nice, decent straight edge. And the first thing I like to do is knock it down a little bit, just because it never fails that when you pull out a nail, you wind up lifting some of the drywall a little bit. So it's much easier to go over something that's already flat. So this is already flat. And then the whole goal here is just to squish some of the joint compound into the hole. Doesn't take much at all. This is going to be way too much. So I'm going to just squish it in and then scrape it off. I'm going to do this one over here, which you guys can't see, so I don't forget to do that one. And then I have one over here, squish it in, and take it off. And that's all there is to it. If it's a significantly deep hole, you might want to do this once or twice or 3 times. Like if you read the instructions on the joint compound, a thick layer does not work really well. A thick layer will crack as it dries and you'll need to do it again, and it won't dry thoroughly because it takes so long to dry it if it's like a deep hole. Little nail holes, never a big deal. You just do this and you're done. This is why you saw over on the other wall that I went ahead and I did an initial patching, and then you didn't see that I went back and did another coat over top of that because I could tell as I was wiping it away to try and make it a little smooth, there was still a divot inward. And then this last time you saw that I actually added a third, sort of a very thin coat that I could then put my texturing on just to make sure everything kind of stuck together. So when this is all dry, that's the easiest time to do it. I'll go ahead and give it a shot now. This will not work. If your hole is too deep, doing this while it's wet will not work. Like, you want to wait for it to dry. But so I just have a damp cloth here, and I'll start over here on this one. And like if I just give it a quick wipe over, I will get most of the stuff that is on the existing wall wiped off. And that means, oh, see, I knocked, and now you get to hear my cute little doggy. That means I won't like lose texture here and it won't be quite as obvious. It is much easier to do this when it's dry. Because if I swipe too hard, I'm actually taking some out of that hole as well, and I might create a divot, which means I have to come back in when it's dry and do another coating. These are just pretty simple nail holes, so I think I'm okay, but I'll check them, and if they're not even when I come back, I will go ahead and do another spot of joint compound. And you can use this for other things other than holes. If you have a divot in your wall, you know, like the bed dug into it or something bounced up against it and created a dent in the wall, fill that too. Because the whole idea is you fill it now, it'll be a little bit smoother when you do the painting, and you won't see all that wear and tear that naturally comes when you're looking for walls. And there's a lot of it. Here, wait, hang on, I'm going to take you on a tour again. So there's that side of the wall, but just for fun, let me spin you. Don't get too dizzy. You can see all my smears, but if you look closely, do you see all those little white dots? Yeah, those were all nail holes that have been in these walls for I don't know how long. I put some of them in, some of them were already there. So it's always worth, before you get around to prepping room for painting, to make sure you do this step. There are little holes everywhere, and this just gives you a much better finish coat in the end. Hi friends, ever make anything a little bit harder than it needed to be? I totally did that. So I knew paint would show me what I'd actually done and whether or not the texture was a match or not a match. It's pretty easy to tell. What you see here is just the primer brushed over the existing wall. And what you see here, of course, is the primer brushed over what I did. And it's way too obvious. Let me get you a close-up. So you can see all the texture I added on, but what you should be noticing, hang on, I'll go over here a little bit. What you should be noticing is the lack of that kind of texture here. And it's even more obvious on this one. Let me get you way over here. I mean, you can see it. It's too bumpy. Yeah, so I did that. I worked extra hard and I didn't need to. Yeah, I kind of got to fix the wall. All right, we'll fix it next. Well, friends, when I last left you, we were discussing how I had overdone it. I've been trying to hide the texture from these shelf brackets. So I needed to patch these walls because there's at least 2 layers of paint. So it left a gap when I took the shelf brackets off. So I did a bunch of texturing and other stuff, and after priming it, it became very, very obvious that it was too much. Like, you could definitely see the texture I had created. And the fix turned out to be so simple. I just knocked off the high stuff. I literally did this. And what's cool is, so you can see it's not coming off now, but this knocked off all the high points and left a much smoother texture. And what's cool is, I think it's going to create just enough bumpiness, because you'll notice, you know, it goes past where the shelf brackets were actually located, I think this is going to work. And hello everybody, so here's what I've gotten done so far. As you can see, I have started priming the wall, and it'll be difficult for you to tell, but I can tell. So they blended in pretty good, texturally wise. This one, not quite as much. I can see an edge here, so I think I'm actually going to do a little bit more joint compound over that one, so that it blends in a little bit better. This is one of those tricks why people use a flat paint. A flat paint won't show these differences in texture as much, but I'm going with probably something that's around a satin or an eggshell, so the sheen will wind up showing up any dimples and other things in there. So I just need it to blend, and I think the other two are okay. There's a little bit more bumps and stuff, but this one, the edge up here is really noticeable, so I'm going to be changing that. But I did get that wall done as well. So I need to do vertical blinds need to come off of there, and then I can prime those walls and I can paint the whole thing. To be honest, I'm using this room while I'm trying to do this stuff with it. So I think what I'm actually going to do is start working on paint color and get these walls painted with the base coat color that I want to have. I did want to do a fancy paint treatment. We will see how much energy I have left, but I think I'm going to get these started so that I can move all the rest of the furniture that's sitting over here onto these walls, and then I can deal with these walls. And so we're kind of going to do the room half and half at a time. I've never done that. I usually just clear it out and go, but why not? I'm using it. So that's what we're going to do. Hopefully we'll get it done, in a week or 2 or 3. And there it is. The wall is repaired and the painting has begun. You might even caught a glimpse of what it's going to look like in the end. Honestly, the repair went really well. It blended in beautifully for 2 of the vertical rail damage that I had. The one nearest the wall is a little bit noticeable, but it's not bad. And in the end, I wound up putting a mirror over half of it anyway. But I like it. I think it turned out very well. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe and like. Next time, I'm going to work on painting the wall and doing the paint treatment on it that I was inspired to do by where else? Pinterest. It's going to take quite a bit, but I'm stuck at home in the middle of winter, so why not, right? Spend some time redecorating a room. I hope you will join me for the next video on my place and my plot.